Your players come to you and say, right, so that dagger that you gave us last week, what's the history behind it? Where does it come from? Who made it? Why has it been made? What's engraved upon it? Your response is very glib. You go, Hello and welcome to this week's episode of How to Be a Great GM. My name is Guy, and today we're looking at that tricky issue of when your players are asking you for information about a subject or about your campaign world that you did not prepare for because you're not insane. You have got your stories going, you've got your seeds going, you've got everything that you're doing that you should be, and you threw in something for color. In the treasure hoard, there's a painting of a young prince, there's a very decorative ruby ring, there's a golden ornately carved chalice, and there's several thousand gold coins. And the one player goes, ooh, I pick up the chalice. What's the chalice? What's engraved upon it? There is no way that you could possibly be anticipating having to create that kind of information. How do we then do it on the fly? It's super simple. It's really easy. Easy. There's 4 E's in easy. And we forget about the rest of the letters because it doesn't help with the analogy. So I look at 4 E's. These are the things that I do in my head the moment my players turn to ask me for some history or for some kind of relevance. And this happens in the blink of an eye. So it seems to the players, but it's not. It's my brain running around like a hamster on a wheel on fire. And this is the process that I go through. So the very first step in the very first E is to emote. Think of an emotion that you want to attach to this experience. Oftentimes what I will do is when characters have got treasure or they find something that's old or they're getting this information, there will be a general tone throughout the group at that moment in time. It could be elation, it could be joy, it could be sadness, it could be desperation, it doesn't matter. Whatever the emotion of the table is at the moment, I will say, okay, well, everyone's really happy. They've just defeated stuff. So I'm going to go for a depressing or a dark or a sinister kind of emotion or an angry emotion. Everyone's been fighting. They've been trudging. They've really been putting in all of their effort. I'm going to go for a hope emotion. So you choose your emotion and then you need to figure out how you are going to evoke. That's the second E. Evoke that emotion. So if your choice is, let's say, hope, how would a chalice represent hope? How would it evoke a sense of hope in those looking at it? Well, surely that's got to be in the design, right? So a chalice that is designed to evoke hope won't have lots of spikes and spines, and it won't be made out of black glass or black metal. It'll be radiant, and it will have designs upon it of joy and prosperity and salvation. Those are kind of the themes that are starting to go through my head at this present moment in time. And so when I then sit back and I go, okay, well, let me think about this. If I wanted a chalice that evokes hope, there's got to be some history behind that, the design of that chalice. There's got to be some ideology that's going on to make this thing look like that. Right, so let's say that this chalice was used when 2 warring factions came together to make peace. It is a chalice of hope. Okay, this is fine. Usually it's a handshake, but in this case now it's a chalice. So that means that the chalice probably needs to be made out of 2 things, one from each nation. Because oftentimes when you're mediating disputes and the things like that, you try and look for common ground. So I'm looking for things that have been brought together. I'm looking for symbols of hope. Those are the kinds of things that I need to evoke in my player who's now looking at this thing. Now I need to establish it. That's the third E. So I've worked out the emotion. I've worked out how I'm going to evoke it. I now need to establish it. I need my player to know this. If the player is asking the question, they want the information, so I should reward them justly. I should give them that information. And so the information is very straightforward. It's a case of saying, oh, okay, I'm establishing that this is a chalice of hope. I can use a skill check, I could use a history check, I could use a proficiency, I could use whatever your system is using. But what's established in your world at the same time? So maybe you live in a world where the elves and the humans have been at war for centuries and they hate each other and they just, death, death, death. Okay, so maybe this chalice is to represent hope that the war will come to an end and there could be some peace. Okay, so I'm taking a little bit of what I've established in my game and I'm going to burn that into this chalice So what if the metal is a unique elvish metal? It comes from an elvish territory, it's mithril, whatever is unique to your elves, whereas the chalice itself is designed by a human craftsman. Ah, I am taking what has been established and now I am establishing something new. As you gaze at this chalice, you find the metal that has been used, it's not platinum, but it's also not silver. It seems to have a brilliant white sheen to it. And the style of it is very reminiscent of a period 7,000 years ago in human history. This is a very old chalice. The handles on either side are designed for different sized hands, as if the one on the left is designed for a longer, slender, more elegant hand, whereas the one on the right is designed for something more human. This is because the two species would lift the mug and both drink from it by helping each other. Again, just this idea, evoking hope, evoking this emotion, bringing it all together. The final E is to either expand or to end. And this relies on you very specifically deciding, do you need this object to do something in your game or not? If you need it to do something in your game, if your players are lost, if your players are wandering and they don't know where to go, and you need to give them some kind of direction, well, what could this chalice possibly do? In itself, nothing. If it's not a magical item, it can't, when you drink from the cup, you gain insight into your enemy. I mean, that would be something that a Chalice of Hope might do, you know, or it's a Zone of Truth, or you choose whatever effect. If it's magical, if it's not magical, if it's purely mundane, it still has a function. Let's say you want to use this object, or not, let me rephrase. You don't want to use this object, but you now have access to this object, and your player has invested in the object by asking about it. What do you now do? Well, very simply, as the GM, you are entitled to say, and you think that this object would have particular importance to the human lords, not only from a historical perspective, but from an insight perspective, and potentially as a negotiation tool. If you were to present this to Lord Fernand, they may very well reward you for finding this, far more than its street value. What you've now done is you've given the players an avenue to explore. Okay, I can take this and I can go to the Chamberlain. When they get to the Chamberlain, well, the Chamberlain just happens to have some information for the player characters, information that the players need to move the story forward. So you are ending or expanding depending on what you want this object to do. If you don't want it to lead anywhere, if you don't want the players to start following it, that's where you end. It's a chalice that was used by humans and elves 7,000 years ago when they were at peace. They would both hold on either side and they would take a sip from it. And that's it. You don't go further. So those are the ways that I use history as a tool. My easy approach: emote, evoke, establish, and then end or expand. Those are the ways that I use things. So whenever I'm running a game, and you can catch my games on Friday evenings where I am running these games, you will see me doing this all the time. The players will be asking for this, they'll be asking for that, or and I'll be sitting there going, you know, a creepy feeling passes over you as you look at this book. It contains the writings of an ancient beast. I will sometimes slow down. People think it's for dramatic effect. No, it's for the brain to keep the running and the wheel spinning as it is going, oh, let's add this, let's do this, let's do that. That is what my brain is doing. It slows all the way down and becomes super descriptive. That's how I do it. What do you do? When you are faced with a question about history or an object, what is your process? Do you use the EEEEasy method or do you just wing it? But how is that helpful? How does that help us learn and grow? Share your thoughts in the comments down below. And of course, if you liked the video, just hit that like button. It makes the world of difference to the channel. For more, follow How to Be a Great GM on all of our socials, and we'll keep you up to date as to what's coming out, when and where you might find the live shows. Until then, I wish you and yours the happiest of gaming.